Welcome to Buddy Book Club. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dylan, here with my tune leader Keith to break down some bestsellers. This week we're sticking with the young adult section of the library and aiming our flash pistols at Ender's Game. If you'd like to reach us regarding this book or any of our past or future episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. Ho, Keith! You like that?
What'd you just call me?
You know what? I knew you were going to say that too.
Thank you.
Keith, I feel like a lucky little pinhead fart eater that we get to do this book. I think it's your second time reading Ender's Game.
Yeah, and we'll get into it, but second time was much more enjoyable. I think listening to the audiobook made it a little bit better for me, and I had a better appreciation this time around.
Okay, yeah, so you did the audiobook, as did I this time, which I only found out afterwards. Orson Scott Card, the author, he has a background in playwriting and had always envisioned this book as an audiobook. But his preferred reading method was having it read aloud to you by someone else. So
wow.
We won. We beat the buggers.
That's why I listened to it. I mean, that's really the reason.
So this book was written in 1985 by the aforementioned Orson Scott Card. This is a Hugo and Nebula winner, which is, I think, our third so far in this podcast, right?
This season.
Fifth season, and then American Gods. It's my special effects category, the Oscars. How if you go through Best Pictures, there's lots of misses for the Oscars.
Yeah.
But if you go through special effects, they're all absolute bangers. So I'm wondering.
Well, I would say it's 1 for 3 right now, but that's just me speaking. So,
all right, fair enough. I mean, yeah, we both didn't really love fifth season, but hey, I liked American Gods. But either way, this was a Hugo and Nebula winner. It was originally a short story published in Analog Magazine in 1977. What's interesting is the novel was only written, the novel being Ender's Game, was only written because Orson Scott Card was writing Speaker for the Dead, and he realized the first 50 pages made no sense and just was really boring. And he was like, I need a background for this. And it just hit him that he should tie Ender's Game into Speaker for the Dead. And that's why he decided to write Ender's Game into a novel, which I thank you. Thank you for doing that. I don't know have you read any of the sequels?
No, I think you'd mentioned it gets a little bit outside of the young adult audience selection, which once it goes outside that, it's a little above my reading level. So we usually don't go into those realms.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, they're definitely more adult, at least the Speaker for the Dead and Xenocide. But I haven't read, he kind of offshooted it into a different branch. And one of them is Ender's Shadow, which is the other branch. And it's basically the same book, but from Bean's perspective. I haven't read that, but supposedly it's awesome. This book, I think, is kind of a mix between Starship Troopers and Harry Potter. That's how I always saw it. Maybe it's because I was of the age when I think I read this book right around when I saw Starship Troopers. But instead of Harry, we have Ender Wiggin. He's kind of like the baby bear in the Goldilocks story. He's not too nice, not too ruthless, at least in his domicile. He's just humane enough to not torture woodland critters and just ruthless enough to commit xenocide, but still feel really shitty about it. So
I mean, and I know what xenocide means, but our audience might not. So why don't you explain that word and tell me exactly what it means, because I know what it means.
Oh, it's just genocide, but instead of people, they're aliens.
Okay.
Xenomorph from the Aliens movie was just
See, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
See, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much this book. It's that whole story of Ender killing a bunch of buggers, but really it's then loaded with a bunch of battle scenes, which I would say is the best part. Anything else to add in the summary?
No, this is your book. You covered it, I think, adequately. I think we like to use some analogies. I wanted to throw out mine, which was it's a mix of Independence Day and Lord of the Flies, which I'll get into that too. Also, I think it's a good little smart combination there, Keith. Good point.
Yeah, good. Well done. Well, before we dive into our categories, we got a lot coming for you. We like to enjoy a libation based on the text. Unfortunately, the 6 to 11-year-old boys obviously aren't tilting back any cold ones. I don't even think they drink anything. There was no reference of drinking anything in the book, except they did talk about how shower/toilet water was being recycled on this battle station.
Yeah, well, wasn't it at one point he's like, get my sweat. Everyone deserves to drink it today because I like worked hard or something. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Huh?
and then it was like
Pardon?
it's like Bonzo's blood is going to be mixed in with the water that everyone else is drinking. It's like, chill, bro. It's quite the smorgasbord of different things in that water. And in order to recreate that, if you're bold, I'd say pause the podcast, head down to your local pub, grab that little plastic trough they have at the bar, pour it into a tall glass, and that's our Ender's drink. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to enjoy a Miller Lite. So here we are.
Some would say that's the same thing. Got him.
Oh, how dare you? How dare you? It's a fine American Pilsner. All right, let's jump into favorite scene. I assume we're going to have a battle room heavy take here, but please start us off. What do you got for favorite scene?
Yeah, so I didn't actually have one specific scene. I'm kind of going to go a little broad brush here, but my favorite really was just the overall school interactions, the interactions between all of the kids. It felt super real, really well written. I think this book is like a psychology book wrapped in a sci-fi novel. If I had to guess that Orson Scott Card, it has some sort of psychology background because he seems to get inside people's heads, and that's where the whole, this reminded me of Lord of the Flies. Thought process came from, because that book is all about power structure and the way people react in groups and how people take dominance and like how you show dominance. And that's basically what the whole school sequence was about, is him being like, this is how I have to gain control and win, which I thought was really, really cool. And then obviously mixed in that is like his strategy and things like that around it. But that was all derived from the fact that he had this psychology that above everyone else's, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was cool how this book perspective is Ender's thoughts for the most part. Obviously, they jump into some like Valentine stuff and whatnot, and Graf gets in there. But for the most part, it's just like coming from Ender's head and how he works his strategy out, which is really fun, especially as like a fan of Survivor, which is like, you know, you're just wondering, what are these people thinking the whole time? And so when he's, you know, beating people up, it's like, I got to take this guy out.
Yeah, it kept reminding me like, step on their throats, like when they're down. I kept thinking of like someone yelling that out.
So my favorite scene, at least to start it off, I have a few. I got a couple.
Okay.
But Ender's intro to the battle room / training with Petra. So his first step into the battle room, feeling totally topsy-turvy, Petra explaining to him, you know, some basic maneuvers. It immediately clicks for him. And he sees the strategy within there. And, oh, if I lean my legs up like this and freeze my legs, this happens. It kind of reminded me of Oliver Wood introducing Harry to Quidditch. You know? He's like, it's a bludger, Harry.
Wait, that's the same scene as Give It Here, Malfoy, right? Where he gets on the broom and just flies off?
No.
Oh, that's before it. Actually,
no, it's
right?
after. It's after. That's because your cousin, Professor McGonagall,
Yeah.
she sees Harry do that. Grab what is it? The Remembrall. God damn, I'm good. She grabs the Remembrall, and she's like, "Oh wow, all right, he can hang." And she's just like, "Harry, here, meet Oliver Wood." And he's like, "Oh, hello, Harry." It's like, "Oh, how you doing, Oliver?" He's like, "This is a pleasure. We're playing Quidditch." The Baiters.
Is this from the movie, or is this the voice you just believed?
The Baiters take the Bludgers, and they use it to take the quaffle. No, that's from the movie. That's the Oliver Wood character. He's Scottish, which I love. Also, Cho Chang is like a Scottish actress. Asian Scottish. Who would have known?
Oh, all right.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's kind of like what we've talked about before on previous podcasts, the beginning of a superhero movie, how they become the superhero. This is seeing Ender take that. And I just love that stuff because you know there's so much more to come with the battle room. The ambush because, you know, Ender does those little launchy practices, and they pretty much get ambushed by the older kids. And it was like a fight between the Jets and the Sharks and West Side Story, you know, when Ender sees them all coming and then just looks at his launchies and he's like, "Go Nova." It's like, let's go. They explode out of it, you know, into their formations. It was super cool. And then even at the end, when Ender wins, all of his guys are safe. He not only beats the crap out of everyone, but then all of his launchies are just jeering back at the older kids. And they are not smart enough, even though all these kids are geniuses, they're not smart enough to like come up with their own disses. So they're playing the repeater from Super Troopers, and these guys are like, you suck. They're like, no, you suck. And just whatever they say, they're just saying it right back to them. A bunch of 6, 7-year-olds. I loved it. It was great.
Okay, all right.
It's hard to envision these kids as like 7-year-olds.
Yeah, I think this is like almost Game of Thrones ages where they are like, this girl was 7 but they're actually like 14. You know? That's what it's supposed to be.
My nephew's 5, and I couldn't imagine in 2 years him being like, all right, I'm going to run this battle school. It's like, what? But I also really liked, they did a little thing when he finally becomes commander or whatever of his army. And he starts getting the slips, and it's like Petra Arcanian, Phoenix Army, 0700. It's like, oh shit, this is going to be a battle. And then they don't really talk about those battles, but it's just like a montage. If this was the movie, it'd just be a montage of Ender just scraping the floor with all these other older kid armies. And it didn't really get too into it, but it was one of those things that you really see in your head as you're reading it. I loved it. Big fan. Big fan. That's pretty much it for me. I think there's an honorable mention for the final battle, even though it wasn't really spectacular and there wasn't a ton of like strategy talk or individual tactics being discussed. But I liked Ender. You know, they're pulling up to a giant planet. It's all these spaceships, you know, using your imagination. And it's just like, it's like the assault on the Death Star. You know, he's like a red 2 to red leader. You know, everyone checking in, all of his guys, and immediately all he says to him is like, enemy gate is down. And then Ender dropping the little doctor right on the planet, which I don't know if they use this as a reference, but the bomb they dropped on Hiroshima was, I think, called like the little boy. So I don't know if they use that for the little doctor, but it had similar results, except instead of a city, it was an entire planet. But at the same time, tricking Ender to commit genocide, or in this case, xenocide, yikes. That's tough look by the military, but you know, you got to do what you got to do.
The first time you read it, how big of a plot twist is that for you when you find out that he's actually fighting real buggers and not in a simulation?
I remember it being a pretty legit plot twist.
I was saying the same thing, but I remember also the book was 50 pages left, and I was like, all right, so what's going on? You know, like, it was one of those things like, there's got to be something going on here because they're not just going to have a big battle in the last like 10 pages, you know? I remember I wish I didn't know. If I wasn't reading like the physical book, I probably would have been much more surprised.
Yeah, it's not like the end of Star Wars New Hope when they just do like a medal ceremony and then that's it. You know, it's like, oh, okay, there's only 5 minutes left in this movie. Obviously, this is the end of it. But I do like how they went into more of it. The book transformed at that point. And I think that's where he was talking about, or Scott Card, about how the first 50 pages of Speaker for the Dead didn't make a ton of sense. He just rolled that into the end of Ender's Game so that like Ender's Game could have a nice smooth landing and then could pick right back up for Speaker for the Dead. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Let's get into some stock up. Stock up, stock down. Stock up, what do you got?
I mean, you know this one's coming. I think you were alluding to this originally.
Come on.
My stock up,
the same one.
treating kids like adults. Is that it? Did I get it? Oh, wow. I thought that was the most obvious one. I mean, this is why you treat kids like adults.
Can you give us, well, hold on. Can you give the listeners some background about why this is important to you?
Well, well, first off, when I see like some kid that's 6 or 7 or 8, whatever that age, I don't talk baby voice to anyone. I don't do any baby voices. I don't talk down to kids. I don't think kids deserve that. They should be talked to like they're normal human beings. And when you talk down to them, and that basically prohibits or limits learning or ability to grow as a human. You know, basically like the slower kids in class, if you didn't push them to run faster and everyone ran the same speed, no one would ever get better, right?
Sure.
You need those people. So what I'm doing is basically lifting everyone up with me those little kids when I talk to them, because I'm talking normal to them. Mind you, I have the intelligence of a 12-year-old, but still, I'm bringing them up to 12. Okay?
So you were talked down to as a child? Is that what you're saying?
I never cared for it, not one bit. Did not care for it.
Well, the funny thing is that you say talking down to 6 or 8-year-olds, but from my memory, you had a 1-year-old niece, and you talk to her like she was Mensa scholar. You're like, hello,
That's neither
hello,
here nor
Ella,
there.
how are you? It's good to see you today. And she's like, I don't speak English.
First of all, she's starting to speak much better English now. Why do you think that is?
Uncle Keith, for sure.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyways, getting back to my stock up, they treat these kids that are, between 6 and 12 like they're just adults and they can handle real life problems. And what do you know? They basically solve real life problems. They're smarter than the adults themselves. So treating kids like adults, stock up.
But they don't get into the PTSD aspect for these children and how, the kids are got to be kids. Let the kids be kids. Well, why aren't there adults? It's like, why can't adults do this job? I never really understood that.
They think too much. Kids are free. They can do whatever they want. Feelings, emotions, all this other shit that shouldn't be involved in kids, which Ender does. He's a little a drama queen. But adults are, what's the word? Inhibited?
Yeah.
Inhibited? Inhibited by, all these other factors where kids are going to just be kids, which is what makes them great.
Yeah, and kids will be dumb enough to kill an entire species without realizing they're doing it.
Right. Exactly. Perfect. That's what we love.
My stock up is one that you had, and I was surprised that, you didn't lead with this because this comes from a previous podcast. I actually don't remember which one, but stock up, bullying. Bullying has been frowned upon of late in our society.
Yeah.
And, these kids keep trying to bully Ender, and he just beats the life out of them. Literally, beats the life out of them. Stilson first in his original school, Bonzo in Battle School. He's a regular old Cameron Poe. If for any Con Air fans out there, his hands are lethal weapons. He murders people with his bare hands. And what does all that bullying do? Saves the world. So if he wasn't bullied, he would have never saved the world. Bullying, stock up. I'm buying.
I'm on board. I mean, it's a
and
great one.
To be specific, it's
agree.
not you bullying other kids because then you die. It's being bullied.
Yeah. Being bullied. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Getting beat up as a kid, being bullied, domestic violence, all that stuff.
It might have come from the Matthew McConaughey book, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Either way. Yeah. We're all on board.
Other stock up for me, fake news. Peter makes the Bugger War and even other outlets, they make the Bugger War, seem bigger than it is. There's a facade of peace and cooperation when really all the big countries are gearing up for the Earth War. After the Bugger War, they're like, okay, we've had all these niceties. Now we're really going to start grabbing power. So they spread all this fake news, making things seem like they're one way when actually they're the other. And it kind of works out in the sense that there's a big battle and then an eventual Earth-wide hegemon emerges. And also tying into that, related but unrelated, stock up for using social media to undermine political systems. Back up, Russia. Demosthenes and Locke did it first. They did it in 1985. What was weird was that Peter and Val convinced their dad to get them access to some adult chat rooms. Seems kind of creepy. I'd be like, why do you 10-year-old and 12-year-old or whatever, 10 and 13, why do you guys need to get into adult chat room? Huh? Concerned? A bit.
I mean, let's be honest. When you were before 18 and a site said, are you 18? Did you say yes or no to that?
No, I said absolutely not. I am under 18. I should not be in this Yahoo chat room.
Yeah.
Do you remember the early days of the internet when that was what you did? You just went into Yahoo chat rooms and talked to random people? At least that's what I did.
Yeah, I remember, what was it? ASL?
American Sign Language?
Age, sex, language.
Oh, yeah, A/S/S/L. Yeah.
Yeah. You still do that, don't you?
I'd always make up. I'd say I was 17, Kansas.
Female.
Weird times.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, so Peter and Val, they pull a Russia move and infiltrate social media under a variety of aliases, which is crazy. They pretty much create all these different aliases, not just Demosthenes and Locke, all these commenter sections, really. And they take blogging. This is 1985. This is pre-blogging, obviously. And they take this small website idea of blogging all the way to the top. And not only are they featured on news and whatnot, but Peter takes it all the way to the presidency, or in this case, the hegemony. I don't know what that would be, but blogging. using social media. This is crazy. Well done. Well done, Orson Scott Card. Really saw into the future with this one.
Well, actually,
Yep.
Can I give a counter argument to that? Because it's actually my stock
Please
down.
do.
Thinking smart arguments matter. That's the opposite of what happens now, right? They are out there writing these essays, writing these like long-winded theories and thoughts around Russian troop movement. That would never see the light of day these days. Or it might be out there, no one fucking would read it. You need clickbait, you need hot takes, you need quick, to the point, succinct arguments. These essays, like, get the fuck out of here.
See, I disagree, because like that's what the whole QAnon movement was. It was like some guy saying Russia's building up whatever on this line, and then all these people taking it and just going with it. So it's not necessarily that what they're saying is the like end all be all.
1 second real quick here, D-Man. So last week you're telling me COVID's fake. This week you're talking about all the theories of QAnon. What's going on over there? What do we got going on here? I don't know if I trust you anymore. How do you know what QAnon's doing and what are their articles?
It was a documentary on HBO. I watched it. I look at all sides. Also, Peter and Val would crush on Parlor. Just saying. Did you have any other stock ups?
How do you know what Parlor is? See, that's the thing. The last one I had video games. Stock up.
Interesting.
I think I've shared this theory with you before, but I'm a huge proponent of the future. It's just going to be soldiers are going to be run by like computers, right? So it's going to be the best video gamers in the world being our best soldiers. So that's what basically this whole book was about, right?
I think we've talked about this in the podcast before.
Oh, have we? Well, either way, they're also giving out scholarships to gamers now at colleges, which I think is just setting the tone for like the CIA to come in and recruit them. I think the colleges know, the government knows. Everyone's online, kid. You better learn quick, all right, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, because I think we talked about this because a lot of the controls for different, I don't know, military machines, apparatuses, I don't know exactly what they are.
Oh, yeah, they use like Xbox controllers.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, right?
They use
Xbox
Xbox controllers because people are more familiar with them. So, yeah, hey, you know what? That's. I have an addition to video games coming up, but I don't hate it. My last stock up, working from home, easy. Come on. Ender commands his squad basically on a Zoom call. They kill an entire bugger race without ever leaving their home. It's, they're in the spaceship and they kill an entire race through basically Zoom call. So good for us. Good for them. Stock up working from home. Buy it.
Great point.
But now that that's covered, my first stock down is video games.
Don't care for it.
Because in my mind, the news was right. Video games create violence. You can murder an entire species via video games. This is bad. We shouldn't play video games. Stock down.
Hot take. That might actually work if you were to publish an article on it, but it wouldn't be that smart of a take, so that's why it would work. For me, stock down, the first one would be dire consequences. Yeah, so here's my problem, kid, is what was the reason? Listen, I'm just as competitive as anyone out there, right? If I'm between 6 and 12, it's life or death out there for me. I capture the flag, baseball, any of those games you used to play back in the day around the neighborhood, basketball, German Spy, if you ever played that.
Oh, I haven't. I haven't played
game.
German Spy.
Great game.
I've played Hide the Pickle.
Wait, what? Anyways, I'm not talking about games with your uncle, but but yeah, so there really was no dire consequence for why they would take these games this seriously, though. Like, Ender basically has a mental breakdown, has to go back to the home world and like cries for like 4 months at his a log cabin and builds like a canoe to like quench his anger and angst
Because the leaderboard.
Yeah, it's like, bro, it's a fucking game. Relax, okay? Like, this isn't people getting killed or murdered right in front of your face. So what I thought should have happened or changed is that they basically have like video of their parents either like being tortured or not fed.
God.
And now you create that dire consequence, that tension, kid. Or you basically say, hey, if you're not in the top of the leaderboard, 10% of you guys get killed. We fucking murder you guys, right?
Jesus, you're dark.
Well, I mean, this is like Hunger Games, right? That's the premise of Hunger Games. That's why they're literally willing to kill each other in this big battle royale, because the consequence is you die if you don't kill the other person, right? Where we're here is like, why are we... What's the reason that these people are so angry or so like willing to like kill people because
Well, Ender's MJ. It's as simple as that. You know, he's just got that competitive gene. He wants to win, and he's willing to do whatever it takes, whether it be like, who was it, Spud Webb or whoever, that he got into his head so bad the guy had like trauma and never played basketball again. It's the same idea with Ender. He just wants to win. That's how they've been bred. They've literally been bred for this, and they understand what they're training for. They're training for the impending bugger war, which to them, from all of the news and everything they've heard, is like the end of the human race if we don't have this figured out. And they're all geniuses. They're all super geniuses. So it'd be like saying there's no competition in Harvard or something like that. It's these guys are fighting tooth and nail to be the best.
Yeah, but are people going to kill each other in Harvard? And also, they're all on the same team. So if you take Starship Troopers, for example, like there's definitely enemies within the squadron there. But by the end of it, they're all fucking boys and girls, because they're girls and boys. They're both in the army there. So they're all basically on one team now, even though they're competitive at first. That's what it should be. But in this, they literally have people trying to kill each other within their own squadron.
So if you had it your way, Top Gun would be all volleyball scene and no mock battle scene. Top Gun would just be Iceman and Maverick high-fiving throughout the whole thing. All I'm arguing
is that there should be a dire consequence for not winning.
There is. You get washed out of the school.
They said that the worst-case scenario is you basically like lead some like smaller squadron. That's like, whatever, who cares?
We're going to agree to disagree because they're trying to get the best commission. They want to be leaders of a starship. You know, these are guys who want to be commanders in the real military. Otherwise, you're going to be a fucking mop boy.
But if you were to tell me that, I had to go off to Maine and build a canoe for 5 months because I was second on the leaderboard at one point and the game wasn't that fair, so I'm really, really distraught over this. Would that make sense? Or would it make more sense if you were like, I basically saw people's parents get napalmed because I fucking beat all their kids, right? So that makes more sense to me, that he's so distraught because he had to win, but it also fucked over so many people that he won. It's like a give and take, right? Where now it's just like, what are you upset about? Who cares? You came in first. The game was a little bit rigged. Get the fuck over it, right, buddy?
I mean, we're going to get it. I think we're going to get into that aspect. That aspect I can agree with, of like Ender being a pussy poof. But
what?
A busy poof. But outside of that, I think it's competitive. We're in a competitive environment. They're bred
I have
to
no
be
problem with the competitiveness. I just wanted something.
You want some serious dire straits going on. I got you.
Thank you. Dire consequences, kid.
Did you have any other stock downs?
I had one more. Peaking early. Ender saved the world at like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And then kind of life sucked after that, it sounded like. Like they wrapped up his life in the next 30 pages. And it was like, yeah. And then he like led this village. It was all right. But I basically just saved the world already. Kind of sucks that. So it reminds me of me. Your boy used to be blonde hair, have a rocket arm at QB, 8 years old. Peaked at 8. Ever since then, been downhill, man. You don't want to peak early. Stock down.
Definitely don't want to peak early. I can agree with you there. Although I will say, Ender has other accolades later in life. I mean, he becomes this speaker for the dead. That's pretty cool. It's a second chapter. It's a different chapter, but it's a second one.
All right. Fair enough. What about you?
I didn't know. I didn't have any other stock downs. I was good there. I think after dire straits or dire consequences, it was good.
I just want some parents to be killed or people to be tortured.
Oh, that's clear. That's very clear. Did you have a favorite character in this one or someone that sang to you?
Mine was by far Mazer Rackham.
Oh, okay.
Shout out first to, have you ever seen Rackham Willie on YouTube? Give it a look up. My roommates in college absolutely loved it. It is a homeless guy that just says Rackham all the time. Rackham. But anyways, that's all I could think of anytime they said his name. So look it up. You'll understand.
Hilarious.
But I love me some Master Miyagi and Daniel-san relationship. Just love it. The old guy and the young kid, and he's like basically like teaching them the way. Especially loved how he came in super, super hot. That first scene just basically comes in and starts beating up an 11-year-old.
Beat the shit
just
out
loved
of
that.
him, yeah.
Just loved to see that for no reason. Just loved it. Also,
That's so fucked up.
He calls Ender like a huge pussy to his face multiple times, which I loved. He was like, "Hey, buddy, I spent 50 years flying like around or whatever and
doing nothing in space.
Yeah, so all of the people I know could die just to come back and train you. So shut the fuck up, stop complaining." Yes, someone needed to tell Ender to stop being a whiny bitch, and this guy comes in and does it. He also, seemingly for such a smart group of people, it seems like a lot of this stuff that Ender's obviously smart, like, oh wow, he picked this stuff up really quickly, but it seems like for all these amount of smart people is that they should be picking up on things a little bit quicker than they are. And it seems like him and Mazer are the only people that like see the obvious things.
Yeah.
Like when they were like, oh, I went and destroyed a whole village and they just stopped at the willing to live. I'm like, oh, so they like killed, you know, the king, or they did something basically that, and they're like, no, that makes too much sense. We're gonna go away from that theory. Like, wait, what?
Wait, what?
Like,
No, wait, what is indeed? What are you talking about?
so Mazer basically does like a suicide mission, blows up the queen, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And he tells everyone, oh, this whole society of insects, which we have insects on our world, are all about protecting the queen. And they basically don't have a brain without this one person, which is why they all died after I killed this one thing. And they're like, that sounds ridiculous. That sounds like, that sounds made up. It's like, wait, what? Like, how is this? That's the only thing that makes sense. There's no other
logical conclusion from what just happened.
And he's like, no one believes me. And Ender's like, you know what? I believe that. Yeah, obviously. What are we talking about here?
I mean, I did like how Mazer Rackham came in hot, for sure. And I also like how they didn't stretch that out, like, oh, who is his mystery teacher? And then at the end it was like, I'm Mazer Rackham. It's like, oh wow. It was just like, yeah, I'm Mazer Rackham. Boom. You know, we got to the point because it was pretty obvious that that's who it was based on what was going down.
Yeah.
But I would say the only person that had that same level of intellect was Bean, who I really liked. I mean, he's the only one that gives back to Ender, and he's the only one that kind of reads it the same way that Ender does, but he's not such a busy boof about it. So I appreciated that. And I mean, obviously Ender is a great character. You know, he does have his sad points, but I think that's important. Ender as a battle commander is probably my favorite character, just like when he's doing his battle commanding.
Yeah, I agree
because
with that.
He does almost like his best John Taffer impersonation, especially when he gets his army. He's like, you're only good at the process of elimination because you do it every day on the toilet. Like, okay, chill, bro. Like, we're 8 years old. Okay. Give us a break. But I did really enjoy it. And that's back to the scene, like when he's gets that first army, like his army, I think it's Dragon Army, and pretty much like teaches them everything straight, you know, from the beginning. Hey, who can use this process of deduction? Who understands what I'm saying? And Bean shines. Bean's great. I actually might now have to read Ender's Shadow, excuse me, because I love Bean. Did you have anyone else that you liked for character-wise?
No, I just wanted to add also one quote in from Mazer. He's like, all right, now the real training begins. He tells him he's going to grind Ender down, and Ender's like, you can't grind me down, Mazer. This is literally right after he took 5 months being, I'm ground down from playing catch with the flag too much, and it was unfair. Like Ender, are you fucking serious, bud? And then he obviously gets all pissy and ground down and has to sleep for like 6 days.
Yeah, to be fair, he did kill an entire species, but you know.
This was before that. He was like, this game is too much for me. I can't do it anymore. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and speaking of the person who puts him in that spot, Graf. I actually really enjoyed Graf. He's in a tough spot. He likes Ender, but he has to save the world, and he knows the potential.
Yeah.
So I found him to be a pretty good character, especially because you jump into his head a few times, and you see, you know, there's so much more going on here than just Ender in Battle School. There's, you know, Graf's trying to protect him, but also realize that he needs him, so.
I thought Graf and Mazer Rackham just could be the same person, right? He comes back a little bit earlier.
I think they did that in the movie. I forget the movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I forget the movie, but I think Harrison Ford kind of plays both characters.
Graf and Mazer are very similar. One's just a war hero. That's
and they're
the only
both
difference.
like, I love him too. Don't worry. Let's get into some love-hate. What'd you love about the book?
You already mentioned it, Starship Trooper feel. Love that. I love the video game aspect to it. It seemed like a lot of strategy, a lot of kind of like a real-time strategy going off in your head. It's pretty awesome to visualize it.
Especially considering it's like zero gravity. There's no left, right, whatever. It could be very confusing and cumbersome to explain. And I feel like OSC does a pretty good job doing it. So respect.
I did have another quote that I really liked too, which is kind of summarizes the whole book. Is Ender says, like, once I understand the enemy in that moment, I love them, then I destroy them. That's some psychopath type shit to say, which I kind of thought
it's like
awesome.
Christian Bale in American Psycho or something like that. Yeah. Or who's the guy from Bates Motel or Psycho? You know, just like, oh, once I understand her, then I have to destroy her. It's like, dude, chill.
That's the Ender we like. What? Pardon?
Yeah, I like the more Peter version of Ender. torturing woodland critters.
What about you?
I loved everything in the battle room. I mean, I think I've made that very clear, but especially when I first read this book, this was a summer reading book going into ninth grade from eighth grade. You always get these summer reading books and they suck. Like, it's just the worst books. And this was on there, and it was like a choice at the school. It was like, hey, you can pick 2 out of these 4 books or something. I was like, oh, that's cool. And this book was on it, and I was blown away because every other summer reading book had sucked, and I usually just didn't do it and would buy that little SparkNotes thing back in the day. You know, this is pre-internet, really, or early internet. And this book just reignited my love for reading because it was so well written and it was right up my alley. That wasn't necessarily a love. I just went into that, but God, thank you for that. Lexington school system, best thing you ever did for me. I appreciate it. And one of the things I loved about it was the world building within it. You know, there's the history of the Bugger Wars. I mean, this story takes place on the eve of the Third Formic War, and the Formic Wars, you know, is all the Bugger Wars. They'd been going on for 100 years. The Buggers came, they fucked shit up. Mazer Rackham came to the rescue. I actually, you know what? Maybe this is more like, did you ever see that Freddie Prinze Jr. movie, Wing Commander?
No.
Oh, no. Maybe it's more like that. Yeah, that's a deep cut, but a decent movie from what I remember. I mean, it's a horrible movie, but a good shitty Sunday movie if you're into the sci-fi stuff. But I just like the world building, you know, where the Warsaw Pact, the Russia hegemony, that whole thing, the hegemon. It was great. That stuff I really, in terms of stuff that they really don't talk a ton about in the book, but you just like, it's addressed enough that you can tell that backbone is there and it's real. I love when books do that.
I wish they kind of did a little bit more. It seemed like they gave us like 5% of the book was that side story, which didn't necessarily really have anything to do with the story, which I thought was cool enough to make it 15 or 20% of the book. You could have made Valentine almost the other narrator, and it would have been really cool to see both the worlds that was going on like between them.
I think it's talked about way more in Ender's Shadow, and it's also addressed in the other ones, but the other ones are kind of different stories and they're in the future. I also like how this book came about, was whether that be from that short story, the idea of it being called Ender's Game. Orson Scott Card thought that was like kind of silly, but it was basically around the end game in chess. You know, so he was like, end game. Oh, Ender's Game. My main character's name's Ender.
Interesting.
Which I didn't know before. And he wrote it, or at least had the idea of it, around the Vietnam War. And his brother was going into basic training. He knew that he was right around military age. He'd be doing that. So he was like, what is good training? What is bad training? And he was close to, like I said, close to the draft age. And basic training was around the corner. So he was thinking about how if you were in a war, like training, having live bullets shot over your head, like people can die, what would training be like in the future? And so that gave him the idea for the battle school, and which was basically like the center for the book. He was like, battle school. Okay, cool. Oh, there'd be this space battle school that was zero gravity, and you'd use laser beams that just like stunned people. And
they
that's
really took a very simple concept and made it ridiculously
and then made this like crazy story around it. And he actually had a good point about, or an interesting idea of like what's science fiction versus what's fantasy. And he said science fiction has rivets, fantasy has trees. And I was like, oh, okay. That rivets? Actually checks out.
What are rivets?
If you're building an airplane, like putting 2 pieces of sheet metal together, like those rivets. Basically, it's metal.
Fantasy is like usually out in the woods or wilderness or like a distant world that involves that, and sci-fi is like futuristic, so it has more metal.
Yeah, space futuristic stuff. Yep. But I actually thought that was pretty good. But yeah, how this book came about, I really love that, and I only found that out later, but I really enjoyed it. The last one I had was just the idea of a speaker for the dead. I know it kind of comes in later in the book, but it just seems like a cool Irish tradition to me. You know, instead of having, oh, wow, this person was amazing, they were so good. It's like, nah, I'm going to like chat with this guy like a year before he dies, and then I'm just going to tell you how it is at the funeral. We're going to drink whiskey. We're going to all sit around, and we're going to tell
how do you know a year before he dies? How does this person know
I guess
that?
If someone dies in a tragic accident, you don't know. But he did say with Peter, like at the end of it, he was like, oh, Peter asked me to write his kind of story, and he told me all the good things and all the bad things he had done. So, it's I think that's a better way to kind of remember someone. Speaker for the Dead.
Let's talk about all the good things and all the bad things you have done. That song?
Yeah, just that. Yeah. What'd you hate about it?
So you mentioned like an MJ mentality earlier. Ender a lot of times was like, I don't want to play their game. I want to give up. He didn't really have that mentality in my mind. I also noted that after he basically destroyed the buggers, they're like, well, we needed someone that had empathy to understand the enemy. But they already mentioned earlier in the book that Peter's best trait is literally understanding weaknesses of his opponent. That was like literally the biggest thing he did, and then exploiting it and being ruthless. I don't get why Peter wasn't the person you wanted to pick here.
I think it was because he couldn't lead a group. I mean, he obviously can lead a group of people, but not with the compassion that Ender could, where those people would literally do anything for him. All of his toon leaders. I think that was the idea. Should have
explained a little better. Okay, that makes sense. And then I really didn't like how Ender sends what must be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of starships and soldiers to their death in a suicide mission, and then the whole time he's crying about these like insects from another planet. Like, what? Like, how about the humans he just killed? Didn't give a shit about them.
Yeah,
did not care at all about them.
It was a sentence. It was one sentence. Like, wait, there were people in those ships?
Yeah. Okay, that sucks. But what about these aliens that have attacked us? What about them? Like, wait, what?
I mean, I did have for my hate as well, like Ender being a little bitch. And I'm not here to rag on 6-year-olds, but here I go.
He's 12 at this point or whatever.
All right. I'm not here to rag on 12-year-olds, but here I go. 2 armies against 1. Oh, they unfreeze and we don't. Oh, you don't give me enough notice before the battle. It's like, you know what you're training for, right? Like, do you think these guys on Hamburger Hill in Vietnam were like, oh, there's all these Viet Cong hiding in holes on this hill. That's not a fair fight. It's like, no, you got to go up there and do it. Like, this is what you're training for. And obviously it's horrible, but you're doing it in a safe environment here. So now's the time to get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
He's also blowing everyone out, so it's like, no, I want to keep on blowing people out. This is like, don't make anything challenging. It's like, what?
Yeah, he's
what
like I'm going to take my ball and go home because he lost.
yeah.
Ender,
at
relax.
one point, Ender says when he's headed towards the school on why basically it may not make sense to attack the buggers. They haven't even launched a third attack on us yet. What the fuck? Glad he wasn't commanding us during like World War II. It's like, hey, Pearl Harbor happened, but they've only attacked us once. Let's win a couple more attacks. Yeah. See what happens. When they get to California, that's fine. Then we attack them after.
Let the Japanese take the Marshall Islands. Let them take Guam. Let them take Australia.
That's 2.
Once they take Australia, then we're really going to
might get upset. Yeah. It's like, what the hell?
Which also ties into one of my hates, which is the buggers themselves. There was way too much love given to the buggers.
Way too much.
Hey, their idea at the end of, oh, we didn't realize you were sentient when we first attacked you, like, our bad, that doesn't fly with me. Like, you checked out the society, you saw all of the technology and stuff. Yes, I understand that they didn't have a hive mind like you did, but if you were that advanced, you may or mayn't realize that these creatures have a lot going on in this society. They have starships. They have stuff like that. Like they're not just non-sentient beings, which is basically what they said. Like, oh, you guys don't have a hive mind, so you're non-sentient. And we could get into like a deep idea of like, alien species and what they must think. But no, I'm sorry. We're coming for that ass. I'm not going to just sit around and be like, and you also never sent anything to say like, my bad. You never waved the white flag. Sorry, I'm not sorry. You're all dead.
They were still attacking all the ships when they came.
Yeah,
like, they went in multiple battles after that.
The first bugger war is like they sent a scout ship or a giant scout ship that then like fought people on, I think it was in Asia, like in China. They fought a bunch of people in China, and then we killed that scout ship. So then they sent an entire assault force, which is when Mazer Rackham killed the Queen. Yeah. So it was like, how at any of those points did you not realize you were fighting sentient beings? Like if I stepped on an ant and then all of a sudden all of the ants came together and attacked me back in one mass form.
Yeah, you might figure that out.
I'd be like, I'm probably not going to fuck with these. And I'd wave a white flag and be like, my bad, ants. I'm good. I'm sorry. So yeah, this compassion for the buggers, I'm out. Plus they're ugly.
We assume.
Oh, definitely. You into buggers?
I mean, I'm not gonna say no until I see what they look like.
Did you have anything else for hate?
No, I think we kind of beat a dead bugger, if you will,
Oh,
about this
gotcha.
one.
What about any lingering questions about the book before we get into listener mail?
Can you kick someone in the groin a la Ender and murder them? That's what I kind of wanted to ask.
Oh, that was Bonzo?
Yeah.
Well, he said he headbutted him and he broke his nose and his nose went into his brain, a la Cameron Poe.
I thought he kicked him in the nuts and then he died. I want to rate it like that.
After he headbutted him, he then kicked him in the nuts.
Okay.
Just like a little insult to injury. Yeah.
No, that was the kick that killed him.
He shot his nuts back into him and his nuts exploded. Yeah.
What about you for lingering questions?
Would Ender be the best Survivor player of all time? I mean, he's the most observant person I think I've ever read. You know, he just sees everything that's happening around him, which is very important for the show Survivor. People trust him enough to be governor. At the end, he becomes governor. And then even as governor, he's still working hand in hand with these people, like building barns, building whatever. So he like works around camp. He's super observant. He knows when people are coming to backstab him. I think if he was on Survivor, they wouldn't even invite him back because he'd win every time.
I'm going to be honest. I don't watch Survivor, but
big mistake.
Not that I'm not into it. It's just one of those things where I needed someone to like.
I'll send you some seasons.
Okay. But it's more like the social aspect of it.
What I like to do is you find someone who hasn't seen a season that you haven't seen, and then you guys watch the first episode, and then do the same thing with the Great British Bake Off. It makes it more enjoyable. But after the first episode, you then have the first 5 minutes of the second episode to pick 3 characters who then are like that. Those are your horses in the race, you know?
Yeah, so this is how I'd get into it.
Come up with a point system if you want and be like, all right, if they're the overall winner, you get 10 points. If they come in the top 3, you get 5 points, you know, whatever the case is. But you pick those 3 ponies and then it makes watching the show better because not only are
you're rooting for someone.
Yeah, not only are you rooting for them emotionally, but then it's like, oh, like we need these guys to win. Like this is big. Yeah, I did that with a lady friend of mine, and she actually picked 3 out of the top 4. God damn it!
Wow.
Yeah,
she must be a very high emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
unlike you.
Yeah, she reads people well, I guess. But hey, she hangs out with me, so she can't read people that well.
Got him.
Other questions? Anderson, the guy who leads the IF or whatever, he becomes NFL commissioner at the end of this book. He says football's like watching slugs move or something like that compared to battle school. So why not just start a battle league? Like, why not just start a televised battles that year?
Well, we already know that people will literally kill each other if they're in competition in this game. So yeah, you can't do that, kid. Obviously.
Yeah, it just seemed like that'd be a better sport. I mean, even in Starship Troopers, like we talked about before, like they have football in that, and it's a little weird. I mean, that's super weird. It's the worst scene in that whole movie. But why wouldn't they just have like some mock battles in space? I would watch that. Are you kidding me? It'd be so sick.
Yeah,
like, the Olympics are on right now, and I would much rather be watching Battle School. Let's get to listener mail.
You've got mail.
This first listener mail comes from a listener, Andrew. I don't know if that's a joke off Ender Wiggin, but it comes from Andrew. Maybe you want to stay anonymous. I would like you guys to talk about this quote by Valentine. Those who need power end up in power. What does that say about all of our politicians? Logically, they must be power-hungry people. The people who should be in power are probably not because they have no need to be in power. There's a lot there. Wow. Thanks for sending that in. Much appreciated. This is probably way above our pay grade. We're talking about fucking battle commissions.
Not
in
probably.
space.
It's 100% above our pay grade.
We'll take it in quick piecemeal, but talk about this quote about those who need power end up in power. Keith, how do you feel about that?
Well, I actually am probably the most qualified to answer this because from a guy that had when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace was in my high school yearbook. So I pretty much know the answer to this question.
That Celine
That's Jimi
Dion?
Hendrix.
Oh, okay.
Jimi Hendrix.
I thought that was Celine Dion, Power of Love.
I've actually seen this bumper sticker on a bunch of like hippies' cars, so I'm pretty much a hippie. I don't know if you've noticed
I
that.
definitely haven't.
But anyways, I had that quote, so I know this answer. The best leaders are people that don't want to be leaders. Have you ever been in a job like the people that play politics and like try to rise to the top and do like backstabbing, all those things like that end up getting to the higher levels? Those people are the fucking worst, and that's just times 1,000 when it comes to politics and any other organization. So 100% agreed. Fuck those people. The Rock and Matthew McConaughey should be president.
As they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think people in general have, people who seek power, you know, they definitely want that level of influence, but I think they come at it usually from a place of, you know, wanting to make positive change for whatever their like constituency might be. But once you get power and you see how you can kind of leverage that, it changes you. That's what I think. I don't really know, obviously. I'm not a big politics guy. I hate the news. That's why we read books instead. You know, it makes me think about what Uncle Ben said, not the rice guy, the Spider-Man guy. And just that with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the people in power don't really show that. But I also think like political power is different than corporate power or something. But thanks, Andrew. We appreciate that. Send in more.
I got one too from Steph from New York City checking in. Number one fan, she says.
First time call, long time listener. Hey, how are you?
Yep, exactly. Love to hear that. Love the candid commentary on Dark Matter. Absolute baller of a book. We agree. Pairs pretty well with the Loki show, which is a very good watch.
Haven't seen
Would love to hear y'all's. Haven't either. Said would love to hear y'all's opinion on the ending, but haven't seen it either. But I've heard it's really good. I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, but we'll.
I enjoy Loki. I love Tom Middleton, whatever. He's really good in this show, The Night Watchman. It's like a 1-season banger, but I like him a lot. I'll definitely check it out. It's bingeable. I'll binge it.
And then the questions here, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed out would you be if you realized you were in a situation, the simulations were actually real? Would you rather have known before or after? And what if one day you realize Super Smash Bros. Isn't simulation, but in fact real? Great questions. Do you want to take it from the top there?
That one might be even more complicated than the last. The simulation one is the first.
How stressed would you be if you realize you're in an Ender's situation where...
Well, once the buggers were all dead, I'd be like, well, you know, there's no going back here. I'm not a rear view mirror kind of guy. So I'd be like, well, there we go. That's that. Let's get lunch. I'd be like, that sucks. You guys...
You would be commit xenophobia. What is it called?
No, xenophobia is like fear of strangers. Xenocide, yeah. I'd be like, what's for lunch? I'm cool with it. Let's move on. But I would be like, oh, you guys got me good. I'm 12. This sucks. I just killed all these people.
So you would would you want to know before or after the fact?
Oh, I definitely wouldn't want to know before, because just like Ender, I wouldn't have killed the bug. You know, I wouldn't have done it. I don't think. You know, I'm not about to drop a bomb like that. Those things are so hard. I mean, think about it now. We're still talking about dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and no one's talking about the fire bombings of Tokyo. No one's talking about completely taking Dresden down to its studs, the entire city, which was just as bad, if not worse, than those atomic bombs. So,
oh, we're getting real deep now.
I definitely wouldn't want to know before, but if they told me afterwards, I'd be like, oh, wow, that's fucked up. I can't believe I did that. But I wouldn't be stressed about it. It is what it is. In my mind, I would like morally justify it by the fact that I didn't know. So I'd be glad they didn't tell me. You know, it's like if you go to the doctor's office and they're going to, or like as a kid, and they're going to give you the needle, they never give it to you on 3. It's always on 2, you know? So
Smart.
I don't want to know. I want to go 1, 2, bang. Oh, we're done. There we go. Let's get lunch. That's my idea.
I think, too, if I had the option of when the commander comes and he's like, hey, here's the deal. We're either all going to die in 20 years and you're going to have a normal life, you know, for the next 20 years, or you're going to have to come to space, train for the next, like, 10 years of your life, then go fight this huge battle, and then you'll never be able to come back to your friends or family. I'll probably take in the 20 years and dying thing. I'm fine with that, I think. So I probably wouldn't even be in this situation.
Sure. 20 years is a long way away. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right, whatever, that's fine with me. So I probably wouldn't have even been in the situation. And then I also think that you would still end up killing all those people. You know that experiment where like someone presses a button and if you don't see them?
Stanford prison experiment.
See, this is why you're on air, because you know these types of things. I just know like thoughts around it. But yeah, so basically all he's doing is pressing a button because it's not real. He doesn't see people dying. You know what I mean? So I still think you do it because it doesn't actually impact you. You're just like, oh, these people are shitty. I'm pressing the button. Fuck them. You know?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's a tough question. I mean, you're literally talking about killing an entire species. How would you feel about it? Just off, I don't, hit me out of the dark with that.
What's for lunch after?
Let's talk about the Super Smash Bros. One. I didn't really understand that. I didn't understand that one.
Basically, kind of what our debate was in the last episode is what if like dreams are real? What if the video games you're playing are actual? You're actually killing people in Super Smash.
So
Brothers,
I'm like killing Waluigi.
Yeah, well, I mean they're aliens, right? They're not from this planet.
Oh, yeah. So wait, are we talking about Super Smash Brothers? Or are we talking about other people?
Super Smash Bros. Isn't a simulation. It's real. It's actually happening.
I think like Call of Duty or something like that, where there's like people would be more interesting.
Yeah.
Like there's users, like it's live and you're playing online, and like those users are dead. For some reason you've just have like a 10-0 record, and that's almost like a Black Mirror episode.
Oh, for sure.
I would definitely stop playing the game. I'm not fucking psych. I don't want to die either. So if it goes one way, it goes the other way. So, but if it's like me killing Bowser, I'm probably, I don't need like.
That's like the buggers. What's the difference?
Exactly. I don't need a giant flame turtle in my life. I'm good. Get him out.
Now you're on my side. You would kill them. You're just like, whatever. I don't care.
He's not real. He's not sentient.
You're waiting for the third attack, is what you're telling me. Well, they've only attacked us twice.
Let's cast the movie quickly. What do we got here? Who do you have for Ender?
Have you seen the actual movie?
I did. I forgot it immediately.
Ender, I went with the present day actor, Noah Jupe. If you've seen Honey Boy, he's just a good kid actor. He's also in The Quiet Place too, but he's like not a huge role in that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen this kid. He's got the look. And he was good in A Quiet Place. I mean, kids are hard in movies. Like, casting a kid actor, especially for this, because like Ender, he's 6 at the beginning of the book and 12 at the end. You'd shorten that up. You'd make him 12. But I had Elijah Wood as a young Elijah Wood.
That'd be.
I don't know if you ever saw
perfect,
the Good Son, but that's a great movie.
He's got the whininess down too.
Did you see the Good Son with Macaulay Culkin?
I've never seen that.
Great movie. You should watch that movie. Really good. So yeah, I'd have Elijah Wood there. Who else do you have?
I had Valentine, Emma Watson. Just why not?
Yeah.
That's it.
Sure.
I'll be off.
The only one I other had was Graf, and I wanted John Goodman, but I wanted 75% of his Walter character from The Big Lebowski.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just like instead of Vietnamese people, it was buggers. That's my idea.
I also had Tom Felton, who's Draco Malfoy as Peter, but just to keep it Harry Potter themed. And then I went for Mazer, Reckham, and Colonel Graf. I combined those characters. I went Clint Eastwood, maybe a little bit younger, but I like the whole like, get off my lawn, like these buggers.
Yeah, that works.
Or Nick Cage, one of the two.
So would you recommend this book?
Yeah, so I think if I had to initially, after the first time I read it, I probably wouldn't. My biggest qualm with young adult is like the whininess of the characters. I'd rather just have people be like kind of sure of themselves and, not the world is out to get me. I'm 12 years old. Everything sucks. But I really did like the audiobook and like the battle scenes. And if you can get by the somewhat angsty teenage whininess that comes from it, I think it's a really well-built world and a great sci-fi book.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I think I definitely went over how I feel about it and how it made me feel when I was in 8th grade. I'm heavily recommending it. It's going to be my number one book that we have read so far on the Buddy Book Club podcast.
Really?
Yep, number one for me.
What are your top 3?
It's this, Transfer of Power, and City of Thieves.
I forget what mine are. It'd probably be City of Thieves, Transfer of Power, and maybe Holes. Maybe it's 3 for me. I forget. But that book's great. I don't know what's wrong with you.
I'm going to give you some sploosh for this. I'm going to mail you some sploosh.
Oh, yeah. Give it to me.
All right. Well, hey, this was great. I'm excited for our next book, which actually, what is our next book?
The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. It has a lot of accolades.
Yeah. Reese Witherspoon, Book of the Year.
#1 New York Times bestseller, Reese Witherspoon Book Club, highly anticipated, best book of the summer. So basically, we wanted to pick a very popular summer book that's out now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. This is definitely way off of what our typical book is, but I think it'll be good to change it up. And if worst case scenario, it's not as what we wanted, we can always hash out here as we've done many a time.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, let's keep the beach read vibe going. We still got a couple
Yeah.
more left. Summer's still strong. Keith, this has been a blast. And hey, remember, enemy gates always down.